Welcome to Pound for Pound ATL, arguably the best place to get facts and opinions on your Atlanta Falcons. And absolutely the best place to get your opinions in. The conversation starts now.
What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live. Joined, as always, by my main man, Toby D. What's going on, Toby?
Another loss. That's what's going on.
True.
Another loss.
Tonight, we're also joined by a special guest. Some of y'all know the story. Some of y'all might not know the story. But if you ever need to blame anybody for me doing this and me even enjoying the Falcons, it's this gentleman down at the bottom of the screen. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Doing pretty good. Been a gloomy day, but otherwise, it's been a good day so far.
There you go. Yeah, it ain't been too bad. Like the weather hasn't been the best, but that's all right. It's Georgia. At least you can wear a t-shirt and shorts if you ain't gonna be outside long, because it's 50 some odd degrees today. What'd you say, Toby? It's gonna get up to 70 at some point.
Yeah, what they say.
Man,
Georgia weather, boy.
Yeah, Daddy used to always tell me if you didn't like it, stick around. It'll change real quick, because we get it all in a week. So, as you alluded to, Toby, we are talking about yet again another loss, another perplexing loss, another game that could have been won, should have been won, but here it is. We are now 5-8, somehow surprisingly still second in the NFC South, but the chances are dwindling dramatically. Exactly. Completely and utterly shrinking. I think I saw something earlier that says with the Tampa Bay win, we have a 4% chance to make the playoffs. And then I saw something else that said an adjusted percentage was 9%. So yeah, basically we got to be out of it now, right? Like, I know we're not mathematically eliminated.
So here's the thing. Tampa Bay plays San Francisco next week. They're not obviously not going to have Garoppolo.
Yeah, but they got Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy.
But like I honestly don't. It doesn't really, unless they got Nathan Peterman, he of the 5 interceptions in a game thing. Yeah, unless they got some guy like that. As long as he takes care of the football for the most part. They got too many playmakers. Their defense is unreal.
Oh yeah.
And so, I don't think that they can. I mean, they could. It's Tom Brady. He defies all logic sometimes, and I hate him for it. But I don't foresee San Francisco giving up 2 touchdowns in the final 5.5 minutes. I don't really see that.
Yeah, that would be tough for sure. I mean, it was, though, I have to admit, it was nice to see the Saints just absolutely melt down for a change on national TV in prime time. So that was a nice turn of events to see them just absolutely just, crap the bed, per se.
I was watching it last night for this because I wanted Tampa Bay to win as much as, again, that pains me because I can't stand Tom Brady. But I wanted it. But then, you get to the last 5 minutes, and I'm like, they're 16-3. They literally hadn't done anything all night. And to see him pull that out of his butt, I was like, I mean, it's Tom Brady, so it's not super duper surprising.
Yeah.
So, but I was definitely pulling for Tampa Bay because I want to get to a point where Arthur Smith, which I think was going to lead into something else we're going to talk about. Arthur Smith has to make the call.
Right.
Yeah, has to make the call, and I think that win by them helps push us to that.
Well, Joseph Thornton agrees completely. He says, "What's up, pound for pound? I feel a little better after the Saints choke last night." Yes, I think that makes us all smile a little bit in that aspect. Let's see. Oh shoot, Woon Carter, what's going on? Woon. Let's get the air horn going. Woon. With a $5 tip, we appreciate it. He says, "Rise up, Pound for Pound family. Glad to be here as usual. Do you guys think it's a chance to advance?" I'm assuming you're talking about like maybe advance to into the playoffs, right? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Dude, I don't see it. What you were painting the scenario, Toby,
It,
before we got on, what we would have to do.
I don't see it happening. We got to run the table, and we got to hope the Tampa Bay Bucks lose at least one. And Jonathan is presenting it like they could possibly lose against the San Francisco 49ers. Uh, I don't even think that's going to matter, guys. I mean, let's just be honest, man. A lot of the games that the fans said that, and some content creators said that they felt like the Falcons could win. We have not won any of those games but the one, and that's against the Chicago Bears, which I was
Right.
at that game live and in person and watched us come out with that win. Other than that, guys, check this out. Your last 9 games, the Falcons have scored in 6 of those games less than 20 points, and they've lost all 6 of them.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
And why did we hire Arthur Smith again, JR? I just want to throw that out there. Why did we hire Arthur Smith again?
Hey, to get a run game going. That's why.
We
got-
got the run game going, but
we
what was
got-
the other reason why we brought him in here?
I'm to score points.
So
Yeah.
why aren't we scoring points? That's all I'm asking. Why
Okay.
are we not scoring points?
I will give you I will spell it out for you. Mariota.
All right, well here.
That spells out no offense.
Yeah. Fred Butts tipped us $5, which we appreciate, Fred.
Fred, thank you.
He said if we start Ridder, we make the playoffs. If he doesn't, we won't. So that's like, Fred's thinking that if we start Ridder, or the projection changes. All right. This is something I read or saw the other day, and I thought was well said. It was the margin of error that this team has is about like this.
Yeah.
And every coach, every player makes mistakes. You could go back and watch, just take the Saints game last night. Mark Ingram unable to get the first down. Falling short there. You go back to the Chiefs Bengals game. There's the one play where Joe Burrow basically runs sideways and doesn't pick up a first down, which stalls the drive and allows the Chiefs to go down and score and take the lead, right? Every team, like there's an ebb and flow in the game. Every team, every player, every coach makes a mistake. Just some teams, the good teams, have the talent to overcome those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, unfortunately, we don't have that talent. We don't have the talent to overcome any mistake. So, yes, we brought Arthur Smith in to fix the offense. I think it was to go the opposite side. You'd had 2 defensive head coaches and everything looked, the offense was okay, but the defense went down, so on and so forth. So you went with a different direction. You went with a offensive head coach who is instilling his identity, right? He is instilling the run game, which we joke about, but only one time this season have we rushed for under 100 yards. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he's established that, and he's got, he's doing now what he did in Tennessee. He's making an offensive line that isn't full of studs, like for the most part, look average, right? Which is a feat in and of itself, right? I have had to a point where we're questioning, should we re-sign McGarry? I don't think we should. Just saying, there are people out there that are like, well, let's bring him back on a 1-year deal, so that's impressive in and of itself. But the deal here is where other teams have talent to overcome an interception. Like you even had like Joe Burrow was like at the top of my mind because I saw an interview with him talking about, for the most part, he don't even care about sacks. Like he don't even care that he gets sacked. As long as it's not like a crucial third down where they need to get in field goal or anything like that, he don't think it's that big a deal, even on third down, right? Because they have the talent to overcome that stuff. We ain't got that. Not right now.
Yeah.
We're relying on rookies, second-year guys who are starting their first ever, like really starting their year, the first time ever. Richie Grant, Drew Dahlman, Michael Walker being a full-time starter for the first time in his career. Like we're relying on a lot of roster churn and inexperience. So you hope that they, make some progress, right? And which we've seen with Arnold Ebiketie. Like the
Mhm.
pass rush was, missing quite a bit without Ebiketie. So that speaks to his progression from his rookie season, so far through his rookie season. Like you're seeing a little bit of a sophomore slump with Richie Grant in a sense. Like the last few games, it has been like hasn't been great, but he's also been asked to do a lot of run support, as we're going to get to here in a minute. So I don't think that that's helping per se. But to your point, Toby, I think that given a little bit more influx of talent, obviously at the most important position, I think we might be talking about a different outcome. Like if Mariota hits 2 or 3 of those passes yesterday or on Sunday, like because he went 13 for 24. He picks up a few more of those passes, and we might be talking about a different game.
I mean that long pass to London. Now, granted, he had pressure in his face. Not an easy throw to make. Am I saying for sure Ridder makes that throw? I don't know,
Who knows?
right? But if he makes that throw, and London, who had separation, probably scores a touchdown there. Boom. That changes the game.
Right.
How many times do we see him overthrow London, who's the one of, if not the tallest guy on the field?
Yeah, between him and Pitts,
Mm.
like consistently.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a situation where all he needs to be is mediocre with his accuracy on the throws that he has missed so far this year.
Right.
If
That's the
he's
deal. And like Austin Douglas just says that's here, Ridder can run too, maybe even better. I don't know about that. I'll have to see that to see if he can. He says Ridder has a better pocket presence, is a better passer, is a gamer, man. Ridder also has a short memory. That brings up a
I
point I want to get. Like all that stuff is like we don't know what Ridder is in the
yeah,
NFL.
that's what I was
So
gonna say.
right. Like we saw him in a preseason game or in a couple preseason games, and you're playing against backups as well there. What we did see was promising, and what we do think, in the stance that I know me and Toby have had pretty much the whole year, is that this is the production we're getting out of an 8-year vet. I would at least like to see what a rookie who potentially has a higher ceiling will give you, right?
Yep.
So
And I've seen that from like the Falcoholic
yeah.
Dave, Kevin
Mhm.
Knight. I've seen it from those guys where it's like a lot of the especially the bad games, right? The bad Mariota games. I don't necessarily think overall that Sunday's game was a bad game. Like he's had worse games, to be
Mhm.
completely honest. It wasn't a good game, but he's had worse. In his bad games, and even some of the other games where he wasn't absolutely horrible, he was making a lot of rookie type mistakes. And the thing I kept hearing was, okay, these are rookie mistakes. If we're going to have to go through rookie mistakes, let's go through it and let the rookie make
Right.
them. And if we had let him come in sooner, either start the season or after the first few games, we might be looking like this, at the very least, I think we'd have something equivalent to Pickett.
Right.
But you see what's going on with Pickett now, where is he the next? Is he looking like the next Mahomes? No. Is he looking like the next Brady? No. But he has had absolute definite improvement week
Right.
after week after week.
And
Yep.
that's what King
Yep.
7 is saying. He says,
Yep.
anyone noticed that Pickett outplayed Mariota?
Yes,
Shake
he
my
did.
head. A
Sure
rookie,
did.
I'm just saying, why not start your rookie
Yeah.
at least and see what you got? We know if we need a QB or if this is our guy. That's the overall part about most people's opinion on Ridder, right? Is let's just see what we have. Let's see if it's an absolute dumpster fire, and if we need to be looking for, looking into a Stroud or a Young, or looking to see like who we might be able to like trade for, whether it's a Jackson or what have you. So like that, I think that's the overall and the prevailing feeling. Now, something I was noticing watching the game, and I want to know if y'all get get the same thought process or not. Like Mariota's like main production, and I'm not trying to like harp on Mariota. I'm just trying to figure out, as you were pointing out earlier, Toby, like what's the flaw in the offense? Is it just the quarterback, right? Like because in these scripted plays, Mariota seems to play well. And I don't know if it's a deal where those are the plays they practiced over and over, and that's what he's confident in. If it's a deal where scripted once they get past the script and defense start adjusting to what they're doing, that's when everything kind of gets off the rails. Is that something y'all noticed as well?
Jonathan, you want to hit it up?
I mean, to be completely honest, it just seems like Mariota. I'll say this: the times that I think Mariota has looked the best is when, and we haven't done it a ton this year, but when we've had to do like hurry up type of stuff, he has seemed to be better at that. Again, just like anybody else, I think that's one of the reasons why Matt Ryan was so good with it. Is you get a defense stuck with a certain personnel. The defense then starts to simplify, and it makes it easier to read. Things of that nature. So then you're more apt to start seeing breakdowns in coverage and think guys coming super wide open. But it's when it's the very deliberate pace that we're at, where the defense has a chance to gather itself, has a chance to really set up and do the things that it wants to do, then that's where he seems to have some of the troubles. And yeah, some of the there are some times where he looks super comfortable because it's probably because his first read is immediately open.
Right.
I think he also runs into problems when he starts to that first read is gone and he's got to start making those progressions. I think he either comes off guys sometimes too quickly, because there's been a couple times where if he'd have literally held and it wasn't like he threw it and immediately got smashed. If he holds on to it for another beat, we've seen stuff like Zacchaeus. I've seen him on little out routes and things like that, like down the field where he comes open. If he holds it for a beat, sees it, then goes, then that's potential big play. But then does he just overthrow him?
Right.
Things like that, and it's just. It seems like when he's right on is when it's not important.
Yeah.
When it's important for him to be right on, that doesn't happen.
Right. When the pressure mounts.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
And it's crazy because, when he was at Oregon, he played in, the college football playoff, or, he was in the playoff. He played really well against top talent there. So it just, I don't know I mean, granted, he hasn't exactly had the best year or best career, best career to this point. He had, I think, one really good season. Everything else has been,
mediocre,
pretty mid. Yeah.
So he's just at this point he's just showed you what it is. Toby, did you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, our passing concepts has been limited. Mariota can't run everything. This is the reason why when you get close to the end of the season, they're finally trying to use Patterson as a wide receiver like Matt Ryan did last year. Mariota's not good at the passing concepts, right, guys? That's basically what it comes down to. And it's limiting everything that we can do. Right. And until they get a quarterback that can open that back up like they had last year, provided Matt Ryan couldn't run the football, but he could, the passing concepts were not limited in what we can do. You're only running like 3 different passing concepts the whole game that you're marrying up. People are used to them play action crossers now. They're used to that, okay? People are used to a lot of the stuff that they're doing right now. And so, therefore, if you can't run the football and now you can't use your limited passing concepts you've been using to have success, defenses are going to shut that down. Thus is why we can't score more than 17 points in the last 6 out of the 9 games that we played, because Marcus is the limit, okay? Everybody knows this is no secret, but Arthur Smith and them are going to stick to their plan. They didn't want to bring Ridder out. They're going to stick with Marcus as long as they could. But I think now, guys, it is time for us to put Marcus on the bench and let Desmond Ridder play these last 4 games out.
Yep.
Because if we're gonna be limited like that, let's see what Desmond Ridder
yep.
can do.
I think Shane agrees with all of us what we're saying. He says, being a QB, you need to be able to pass. That is the main job of a QB, and it's obvious he can't pass, especially over 30 plus yards. Exactly, and his downfield accuracy is questionable at best. And so
it's I'm gonna say it's not even questionable. Like literally, like we've seen him miss every single. It feels like every single pass that is in the air over 20 to 25 yards is just a little outside or a little too long or a little too short. That gives that gives the DB a chance to make a play on it. And our guys are not what seems like every other wide receiver core out there knows to do is when stuff is underthrown, you basically stop and come back and you run through the cornerback and you get the call, and we never get the call. And and I'm not trying to pull out the refs are against us thing, or anything like that at all. But it's simply our guys are not doing those things. Now, I personally, I like buying like the general at least culture, if that's what you want to call it, the direction, whatever. I generally like the things that Arthur Smith is doing. Is he making mistakes as a head coach? Absolutely. He's a second-year head coach. He's trying to get through all the mistakes that he makes as a head coach, as essentially a second-year rookie kind of situation. Yes, he makes mistakes. Does he do everything perfectly? No. But I don't feel like at any point in this season, even in the loss to the Bengals and even in the loss to Carolina, which I think those were probably the 2 physically toughest teams we have faced all year. Even in those 2 games, I don't ever feel like we were just physically outmatched.
Right.
I feel like
the Bengals game was the only game you got blown out. And that was something I keep pointing at in the second year of Coach Smith, and his philosophy. Like the first year, like it was rough, but in the second year you've made progress in the sense of you've only been blown out once, and you're doing this with a patchwork roster. And
you're doing it with a roster that was 80 million or something like that is either on IR or is playing for other teams.
Right.
And
like ATL down says we overpaid Ryan, and that's why we suck. In a sense, we didn't necessarily overpay. You were paying market value at the time. But the contracts of the 2 guys hanging up behind me is, the reason why we're in the situation we're in. Like the contracts for Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. But, Fontenot's done a real good job of trying to bring in talent, on a budget, bringing in guys who have at least, been, contributing. And then I think so far has done a decent job in the draft. Even with as limited as what we're talking about here with Mariota, like Drake London had a career day on Sunday, and which leads us into a really late portion of Fallers and Ballers, brought to you by no one. Could be brought to you by someone, but our Ballers and Fallers this week is, Drake London for putting up, like showing you that he can be that number 1 target. And, showing you that his brand of football, can really work in the NFL. And I think once we have a productive passer, I think the picks of Pitts and London are really going to shine. I think it's going to be a, not speed wise, but combination of like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. But right now we don't have that ball distributor, right? And then our faller, and we can get into talking about both these situations, but our faller is just the run defense in the last few games has really. I don't want to put it all on like the fact that Taquan Graham is out. but that doesn't help. And so in the last 4 games, we have given up 232, 160, 176, and 154 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But
so
I
the
mean,
pass,
and half of those was with Taquan Graham, so it's not like you
right.
can
It's
say,
not like
"Oh, we
it was
lost
just a
Taquan
solo.
four
Right.
Yeah.
games ago, and then everything went to pot."
Right.
But yeah, losing Taquan doesn't help because that's one less guy in the rotation.
Right.
That's
Now you're
everybody's getting
leaning more.
tired more quickly.
Yep. Now you're bringing in, like, you're relying more on Timmy Horn, and you're relying
Right.
more on Abdullah Anderson, who's
Mm-hmm.
shown well and flashed. And when those guys, have a tough time, covering or, doing their job, then the linebackers can't flow, to the ball uncovered like they were doing at one point. And again, it's a deal where, teams realize how to attack us now. This late in the season, there ain't no hiding who you are.
I'm gonna say this, because this is something I have noticed, and I said this in a show that I did before the season even started. If you're gonna use the bulletin board material, it's us against the media, it's us against the fan base. You got to continue winning with that. And the reason why I say that is this, because all they've had been hearing is, the Falcons are going to go 2-15, 2-15, 2-15. And the first thing that Cordell Patterson says out of his mouth when he gets the opportunity is that I hope we just win more games than everybody said we were going to win. And I truly believe that the gas ran out after they won more games
Right.
than what people said they were going to win. So if you don't have any other motivation after that, then your team is going to look like the Falcons have been looking. Some of these games, they play very uninspired football. And these last few games, they have gotten dragged or drug or however you want to say it in the run game. They've gotten out physical. Their defense has looked horrible the last few games. I mean, you got Najee Harris out here treating guys like stepchildren, the way
Oh
that he
yeah.
was dragging people across the field. It was just embarrassing to watch. I mean, it was in the Washington game, and I know I missed that game. My wife was saying, "Who was the second guy running behind Brian Robinson?" Because he was dragging people. And I'm sitting up here like, I don't even know I still don't know who that guy's name is that was dragging people after he came in to give Brian Robinson a spell with the Washington
Right.
Commanders. And it's just been embarrassing to watch lately. I just
Right.
hate to say it, but it has.
Yes, man. Willie Doc tipped us, and we
Willie.
appreciate that greatly. Appreciate that. He says, some have said to fire Arthur Smith, which I think is way too premature. Can we talk about the philosophy of sitting QB till ready versus throwing a QB to the Wolves? We can definitely get into that, but I don't want to get too far off of what we're talking about right at the moment. So we're going to circle back around to that, Willie. But Fred tipped us $5, which we appreciate also. Thank you, Fred. He said he thinks Dean Pease. He said, I think Dean Pease needs to go. He hates the 3-4 defense. Now that brings up an interesting question, because I didn't catch the quote that prompted somebody saying it, but somebody said, like they saw somewhere, like it almost sounded like Dean Pease wasn't going to be here next year, and that made me think. I'm like, okay, say Dean Pease is walking away, right? Say he it was what brought to mind was Sean McVay's early days out in L.A. He had Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips, I think, coached for a couple years, and then once Sean McVay got his feet under him per se, he wanted to move in a different direction, and they let Wade Phillips go. How you ended up with Brandon Staley, who is now out in with the Chargers, and so on and so forth. So, do you think it's could be a situation like that where what enticed Pease to come out was, hey, just let me get my feet under me kind of deal. You're a guy I trust. Help me out here. And do you think if he steps away, do you think his son just steps in place, or do you think we go out and try to find somebody else?
Ooh, but boy, that's a tough one. But
That's
you
why
know
I
what?
drink up.
Can we bring in Wade Phillips?
I mean, I think we could, but I think he's coaching in one of those external leagues, ain't he?
Give him enough money, he'll come over.
No doubt. I think he'd like to be back in the NFL anyway. What were you going to say, Toby?
Look, man, I honestly believe that Dean Pease loves a challenge. He's always said that when he hears that this team can't win over there, that's where he wants to go because
Right.
he wants to be able to help that team to be able to do and accomplish what other people said they couldn't do. Unfortunately, he just got way in over his head, guys.
Well,
I
this
mean,
roster was in
yeah,
the
yeah,
defense, like the roster was in shambles, and outside of Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell, you haven't really had no pieces on defense
yeah,
anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like Josh Gillum says, Dean Pease is the last person that needs to go. And I'm really kind of on the fence, like back and forth. Like part of me is like, I'd really like some like young, innovative, DC to come in. But then there's parts of me that's like, yeah, but this dude that we got seen everything. Like he's been around it for so long that nothing's necessarily surprising. I want to see him like given a little bit more talent,
yeah,
you know? And like Josh says, I like this quote because somebody else said it too. If I can find it, I'll put it up there. He says, "Look how terrible our defense is, and we have given up less than 21 points five
And
times."
and I was gonna say that too. I was gonna get to that too.
Well, so part of that, what I can attribute that to, is I think the way that our offense is, like even if we don't score, we're generally taking up a decent amount of time if we get a couple of first downs.
Right.
And so that just by the nature of the kind of offense that we run, we're shortening the game anyways. Now, I'm not saying that holding teams under 21 points isn't good because you could just be taking a bunch of time on your offense and then they score in like 3 plays every time and you're still going to go a crap ton of yards or points. But the complementary part of that is we're generally either very we have more time of possession, maybe not by a ton, but we have some, or we're generally about even. We're not getting out time of possession in a lot of games, but so that helps the defense to stay fresher. It helps the defense to not have to go up against as many offensive plays. And I think that when that happens, now the other offense has to be perfect. And a lot of the teams we played this year, their offenses are not perfect. Are they better than ours? In some ways, yes. And obviously they scored more points at some point. So they obviously were better that day. But at the end of the day, I think part of that is we just run an offense that uses up a lot of clock that gives the other team less possessions to do so. So that could be that could be playing into that a little bit. But I do agree, like the defense at times looks absolutely horrific. I am glad to see AJ Terrell over the last 3 games has turned into last year AJ Terrell instead of earlier in the season Terrell. So that's good. And that just makes me think man, if we just had Hayward.
Real quick, air horn for Shane Wingate says $2, which we appreciate. He says it's the players, not Peas. Look at the tackling. Right. And I think, a lot of it is, I think there's a lot of things contributing. Our good friends out of your Falcon Mind says clearly the defense needs more pieces, which you hope we address in the offseason. Giving up those long drives to the other teams, cuts our possessions, even though they might be holding them to 3. And Pease has said more than once, he's he don't care how many yards he gives up.
Right.
He legitimately has said he don't care. He doesn't care. It's for him, it's just about keeping you out of the end zone. He is that quintessential bend but don't break. And
I mean, if you are 10th, maybe, or say 12 to 15, 16 in passing and rushing defense, but you ended up the season at 4 or 5 scoring defense, I'll take that every single time.
Right.
Uh, but you got to do that. You can't. And we've been. I think for the most part, we've been able to buck up when we needed to
Yeah.
on defense. But there have been multiple times this year where it's like, oh man, we need a stop right here to give our offense a chance, and we got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the offense just couldn't do nothing with
And
it.
then the offense either comes this close and falls just short, or there's absolutely no shot whatsoever, 3 and out, whatever, 4 and out, whatever, and that's the end of the game.
Apparently, my doppelganger, JR, is asking a question. He says, do we have the personal players to run a 3-4 defense? Yes, I get we need another year to get players to fit the scheme. I think you do. I mean, you can, honestly, you could call Grady Jarrett a miscast in the 3-4, but you got to remember, and it's something we talk about in the offseason quite a bit. Like, you run more nickel than you run anything else.
Right.
Predominantly because of the personnel that we have, Dean Pease has ran more of a 4-man front with a cover 3 on the back end. And so that's been, what we've been using. I've seen a handful of, a little bit more 3 linebacker looks this year than last year, but mainly it's been a 3-4, a 4-man front, 2 linebackers, and then it's your nickel look, your 5 defensive backs, which we obviously have the personnel for. It's what I think we could use more of is obviously a consistent pass rusher, which I think we got in Ebiketie. I don't know if Ebiketie is going to be a double-digit sack guy, but I think he's his pressure rate is very high.
Oh yeah.
Now it's just can you get somebody else to go along with it?
That's been the eternal problem that we've had just as a franchise. We either had John Abraham, and that was great, but we could never find somebody on the other end. Last time we had it was like Chuck Smith and who was the other guy on the other side? I can't remember his name. Saved my life. But then we had Patrick Kearney for a while, and he was like the guy.
Right.
But yeah, it's just we can't find the 2 guys that we need. But if we're going to run a 3-4, personally, we need that big, you need that just big hog molly in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think Grady Jarrett could be a really, really good 3-4 defensive end. But we need to have some guy in the middle that can command those double teams so that he can't be double teamed all the time.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and call it like Graham was flashing in that aspect, as far as being able to take up the middle, and also being making that line a little bit more versatile. So I'm really interested to see what Graham looks like next year, as he continues to develop. Our good friend Bradley Burnett tipped us $5, which we appreciate. Thank you, Bradley. He said, I went to the game this weekend, also the SEC championship the day before. It was so disappointing seeing Steeler fans outnumber us 2-1. Now,
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I go to church with a guy who's a Steelers fan, right?
Yeah.
And we have we're doing a church fantasy league. And so we have a little group chat where we attempt to politely talk crap to each other. Doesn't really work out very well, but he had went to the game, and obviously he's a big Steelers fan. And so he made comment about that in the group chat, and I responded to it. And I was like, well, this town has always been, as far as when it comes to the Falcons for sure, has always been a fair weather fan town. If the Falcons are winning, the fans will show up, right? If the Falcons are even being competitive, the fans will show up. The fans were showing up early in the season. Then once the wheels fell off, everybody was like, all right, I'm not wasting my time. Because unlike, Cincinnati, or unlike, and I don't know these towns intimately, I'm just making assumptions. So if y'all are from one of these towns, don't get mad at me. All right. But Atlanta has a lot to offer as far as if you got disposable dollars for entertainment. There is a ton of stuff to do. in and around Atlanta. There's, you have all the major sports here. You got, outside of hockey, we had hockey for a while, but you got soccer, you got baseball, you got basketball, you got football. And that's not even accounting for the fact that Georgia is a college town or a college state. It's UGA. It's the Dogs. That's what people put their effort behind when it comes to football. And so,
and especially now that Georgia,
that they're good.
Even before, but now that they're but they're about to go into the playoffs again. They're going to be the favorite for the national championship after just winning a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to suck the air out of the room for any football fans, unless you're putting out a winning product. And right now we're just not.
Right. And that's the deal is, so with that being said, you add that on top of the amount of transplants that come down here. My
Mm-hmm.
buddy who I'm talking about, he spent all of his life in Pittsburgh. He ended up down here because of the military or whatever. And this is where just him and his wife ended up settling. But they're lifelong Pittsburgh fans. If I moved somewhere else, I'd still be a Falcons fan. And we see it every week when we get people checking in from, California or whatever. So we just have a high number of transplants, and that's what ends up happening. It sucks, but you start putting a consistent product on the field, and that'll change.
Which we haven't had one, looks like now 5 years. But anyway.
Right. Anyway. Josh Gillum says, are y'all happy with how we've drafted with the new regime? We took Pitts over Parsons, Fields, and Jamar Chase. Right move. It's hard to do that, man. And I would advise anybody not to do that to yourself, because you can do that all day long. With every regime, every pick. Justin Fields at this junction still doesn't look like a home run. So you can mark that one off your list. I was pounding the table for Micah Parsons. We had Eric Robinson from the Falcoholic on, and now of ESPN, shortly after the Senior Bowl, not last year, but the year before when we drafted Pitts, and Parsons was really high on my list. I thought Dean Pease with Parsons would be a ton of fun. But what they have shown is what we've always pounded the table for, which is a BPA team. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in that draft, Kyle Pitts was the best player, flat out, hands down. Now, you haven't had this season, you haven't had somebody who could get him the ball consistently. But last year as a rookie, he was only a few yards away from breaking Mike Ditka's record. I think given a real, giving a consistent, quarterback, the opinions of Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to change.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion there.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you on the Kyle Pitts thing. Did I want a defensive guy? Absolutely. But looking even today, you can look at it and say, athletically and everything, Pitts was the better player that just about anybody would have taken in our position.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't fault him for it. And he showed out last year because he had a guy who loves tight ends and was able to get it to him in spaces on a consistent basis. So get Ridder out here. Let's see if he can do the thing. I'm hoping that's what I'm hoping with the Tampa Bay win. He gets out there. Maybe Pitts makes it back for the last game of the season. Probably not. But at the very least,
just let him heal up.
Probably. And and then Drake London at the very maybe we see the Drake London we thought we were going to see coming out of the draft, and because getting a guy that can get it to him in stride on time, and if we can do that, then I think we'll be okay with it. And I'm totally fine with best player available, because you just try to stockpile talent.
Mm-hmm.
Try to stockpile.
That's the model of Baltimore. Like, and Terry Fontenot and Toby, definitely want you to chime in on this because you were a big Pitts guy, coming out, when he was coming out. But like Fontenot has straight out said he don't mind, stacking talent in a certain any certain positions. So, like, I'm excited to see what BPA is going to build for us. It's going to take a few years, but I'm really excited to see what BPA builds, coupled with, like, we got to stop looking at the draft as just a single entity. You got to look at the draft coupled with free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because free agent
this year you're gonna get a real taste of it.
Free agency is where you do you actually do the grocery shopping.
Right. I mean, that's how Belichick's built his team over the entire years. And look at what Los Angeles did. There's that meme going around, F them picks, with Les Snead's face on it, right? It's like that's how they built that team. So, Toby, what would you like to add on that?
The way this offense is constructed, this is not a Kyle Pitts offense. Now, I'm not just saying this because I'm not just saying this because it's my Georgia Bulldogs.
Right.
But Darnell Washington is the best fit for the way this offense is currently constructed right now. He's the more physical, taller presence on the field that can help you in the run game and make the passes that you want to throw. We don't have the offense to run a Kyle Pitts offense. Last year we did with Matt Ryan, which is why Kyle Pitts was able to get that 1,000 yards. But the way this offense is set up right now, guys, we don't have that quarterback. Now, maybe Ridder.
I was going to say, do you think that that's a product of the quarterback? Because
we don't know,
right? Because it's
until
hard for
we
me
get Ridder in there,
right? Because it's hard for me to look at, whoever. At this point, I'm not even, I'm not even like beating the drum for Ridder per se, like, because Joseph Thornton, added like, we have a run first offense, yes, and it could still be a run first offense that when they do make the passes, it goes to either Pitts or London. Out of your Falcon mind adds that Desmond and Drake did work out together after the draft, right? So they already they're trying to build that chemistry. What was I going to say? Sorry, like Tony Wright is like throwing like crazy stats out there about the linebackers. He wants to talk about linebackers. But this kind of goes back up to I'm gonna scroll back up because I told Willie we were gonna circle back around to it. But that's kind of like what Willie's talking about here with this, with the development strategy of QBs, right? Because that's what we're really talking about here. I know it feels like we're dumping on Mariota or whatever. It doesn't even matter at this point. When they signaled that they were willing to go after Deshaun Watson, that told me what I needed to know about this year. Because let's go back in the time machine. You land Deshaun Watson. Like Cleveland doesn't come in with that ridiculous
280 million.
Yeah, fully guaranteed contract, right? Because that's the only thing that got him out of Atlanta, okay? Was a fully guaranteed contract, and I wholeheartedly believe that, right? So let's say you have Watson here, okay? You weren't going to get Watson until at least week 11, and you had to feel like they knew that coming in, that they were pretty much going to be playing the entire season without Watson. So they weren't playing for this season anyway. Now, unfortunately, for fans' expectations, Tampa Bay did what they did and have just about completely crapped the bed all the way through the season, which has kept us right there. We're in it more because of what Tampa Bay didn't do versus what we've done, right?
Right.
Everybody agrees there?
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So, anyway, so when they didn't land Watson, it's like, okay, now we got to, figure out what we're doing at QB. You pull the plug, you rip the cord, you break the emergency glass, and you grab Mariota. At least somebody you're familiar with, what his limitations are. And you're like, let's play ball. You draft a guy in Ridder who was a guy who I felt like fits this system better than any other quarterback that has come out so far. I ain't saying a quarterback couldn't do it better. Honestly believe if Trey Lance had been there, he would be our quarterback this year. It's going back to the Pitts thing. But so they fully said, like, our method is going to be the Kansas City method. We're going to try to build the roster before we drop a rookie QB in. Now, you got year 2 of being in the system. The offensive line is playing better. Not great, but better, Also helps that you got a guy that can move. Ridder can also obviously move.
Mhm.
He's now seen it for, 14 games. And, they may feel better about putting him in there now. Who knows if it's going to work, but that's the method they chose. They decided to choose. And you look at the guys who have been forced into it. You look at Daniel Jones. You look at Jared Goff. You look at Trevor Lawrence. You look at Justin Fields. You look at these guys who have been shoved into it. You're shoved into it on a bad team. And more times than not, you come out broken.
Yeah, and I can get behind that, but look, we don't see what goes on at practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know what Ritter's development has looked like. Like, like at the beginning of the season, was it clearly that at this point in his career, that Mariota was the clear better option at the beginning of the year? Okay, very possibly could have been, because we're talking about a rookie. Okay, the hope is that they've been developing him, and we got some stuff that obviously they're going to say that they're not going to say anything. They're not going to put down Ridder. Okay, they're not going to put him down, but they did come out and say, "Hey, we've been really pleased with his, like his
there's
progression."
Reports coming out that inside the building, they absolutely are like loving the progression that Ridder has made.
Yeah,
right.
Recently, that's the recent thing I heard.
Right. Real quick, our good buddy Austin Pagano tipped us $5. We appreciate it. There's an air horn for Austin. And he says, "Rise up, love the podcast." Now I have to get to this other one right here. Another $5 from Emma Holder. Jonathan, you know her at all?
No. Just some crazy lady. Don't even accept the
money. we appreciate her great.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Not even the $5. We appreciate her allowing us to borrow you for now.
That's right.
That is my beautiful wife, right. And I very much appreciate it.
That's right. But yeah, like as far as like the development of like Ridder, somebody made a good point. Like I think it may have been Aaron Freeman on Twitter talking about like how many snaps a backup quarterback doesn't necessarily get. So, because the thing people were saying, oh, well, if Mariota's still on there, Ridder must be looking horrible. That's not always the case. We don't know what I'm pretty sure Ridder's not even getting snaps with the first team as of yet. So there's no real way to say what his development is. The reports that we have heard, and none from the Falcons themselves, have stated that they are pleased with his progression, that they're even head over heels for him. So, so we're going to see.
And what that is different for Arthur Smith and his regime, and his coaches versus any other team, like whatever their version of progression is, it may be different from Arthur Smith's. And so whatever they have deemed to be like, this is what we want to do, he has apparently been good with that. So
Tony Lambert says, is there really development in practice when Mariota is getting all the reps with the ones? Realistically, who is Ridder throwing to in practice, and how much works the backups get? He's kind of talking about what he's throwing to dancing Frank Darby,
Yep.
And let's see. Willie Doc says, "I'm with you, JR. I think the timing was wrong to put in Ridder earlier. Now is the time." I mean, who could say if it was wrong earlier or not? But I think you definitely now put him in and see what you have for the rest of the season, and see if you need to be, looking elsewhere, because the NFL does stand for not for long. So,
yep.
Like it's also the coach's job to go, okay, look, man, My job's also on the line as well. So, I've given you as much time as I can give you. Let's see where you're at, right?
Yeah.
King 7 says, I think Marcus may just be a bit better, but he doesn't have no more room for growth. He's hit his ceiling. I
Yeah.
think Ridder can pass Marcus' ceiling. That's what I'm truly feeling. He's there. And that's kind of, I think, where the vast majority of fans are at is,
Yeah.
we feel like, Ridder at least has a higher ceiling.
Oh yeah.
Tony Wright, we're at the time of the show where we're just going to start jumping around, trying to catch up on some of these comments. Tony Wright says, what are your thoughts on Rashad Evans leading the league in tackles? We have the league leader last season in Foye, who is fourth this season. So is it the player or the scheme or both? I would say in that aspect, it's definitely like scheme driven, like the middle, or not the middle linebackers, but the linebackers are asked to run fit a lot in Dean Pease's system. They're asked
Mhm.
to fill those gaps. So it doesn't surprise me that Rashad Evans is leading the league in tackles a year after Foye led the league in tackles. Does that seem about right to y'all?
Yeah.
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 Sometimes
Go
them
ahead,
numbers
Toby.
can be skewed though, because you're second to the last line of defense before they get to the safeties. And if you got runners that are coming out to the linebackers and Rashawn has to be there to stop them, he's going to collect a lot of tackles, which he's
Right.
been collecting lately because the runners have been getting out to the second and third levels of the game. So, yeah, while it's great that he has a lot of tackles, sometimes that can get skewed when the runners are heading out that way to get tackled, or
Yeah,
the
well,
And,
wide receivers to get tackled.
and, and it all depends. I mean, I think Keith Brooking
I
probably
was just going to bring
led the like he led the league in tackles at one point, but that was because teams were able to run on us so much that they just ran the ball all the time. And he was either he wasn't doing contacting a guy until he was 5 yards down the field,
right. He
or he
broke
was a pile jumper getting those
yeah,
assists.
6-yard sheriff or whatever.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
there's
So
context. Like tackles are great, but you need context to the tackles, right?
right.
yep.
Let's see. Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade says, even with the way this team is built and with the amount of games left, we probably still won't know enough about how prepared Ridder is if we only are passing approximately 13 to 15 times a game. Yeah, I mean there's true. Like you're not going to get a real sense, but you almost need to do like what Philadelphia did a few years ago when you had Hurts for the last few games, and he gave you a glimpse of what you could expect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's all what people are really asking for. Fred Bud says,
Well, but
go ahead.
well, real quick, like the other thing about this is if Ritter comes in and he starts throwing the ball around accurately, and we're seeing guys get catches and make plays, and if he's hitting them in stride, and we're getting the yak and all those things, do the number of passes go up because of that? Because now that's a more viable solution in the offense. Whereas right now, the reason why we threw it only 8 times in the second half is because there was no accuracy there.
Exactly.
So
I think like I feel like you look at last year contrasted to this year. Last year, you basically had no run game because Mike Davis couldn't really produce.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of times where we were well under 100 yards and he was asking Ryan to throw it 40 times a game. Like, if it does anything, it at least shows you that Smith can curtail his offense to what he has. Like, that's at least a positive, in my opinion. He can adjust what he wants to do to the offensive personnel that he has. Now, unfortunately, at this junction, it's no longer successful. Like as far as getting points goes, he can still run the ball, but they're not converting into the touchdowns at the clip that they were at the beginning of the season. So, like I said, we'll see. But I would definitely like to see what what Ridder looks like for 4 games. I think is the major
Yeah.
thing. Fred Butts wants to know. Mariota has no dog in him. He doesn't seem to care. What are our thoughts? I don't know if I agree with that. I think he does
Yeah.
care. Like there's a difference in, like, I'm not a big fan of saying somebody doesn't have that dog in them, because what you're seeing is like bits and clips on a sideline and then a press conference.
Yeah.
Like, we're not in meetings, we're not at practice, we're not privy to that stuff. So like people used to say Ryan didn't have that it factor. And I was like, what are you talking about, it factor? That's some nonsense stuff that you throw around. And it's because a lot of times you get that like very corporate look from Ryan, right? To a point where I wouldn't even really watch his press conference because you knew he wasn't going to say nothing. You know, you knew he wasn't going to give you any kind of like real response. And I think, that I don't know. It's hard for me to say that he doesn't have that dog in him.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Toby.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Toby.
No, I'll say this much, and I said this already before. Mariota's not the type of guy that when you're losing, he's going to go down the line like some of these star leader quarterbacks do and be like, hey, man, we got this. We're going to come back in the game. Instead, he stands on the sideline looking crazy until he gets back on the field, whereas we've seen Ridder do this. And this is one of the things I like about Desmond Ridder is he has that leadership. I'm going to lead this team, and they are willing to run through a wall for me. This is the type of guy that they were talking about taking second stringers, and they're just practicing at the game while they're doing warm-ups, and he's making guys rerun routes, right? And he knows he's not going to be the starter. But those are things that I like to see a quarterback do. Hey, we messed this up. We need to go back and rerun this thing until we get it right. You don't never really hear that with Marcus Mariota. He's just getting on the field and just, status quo. And I'm not looking for that in my quarterback, man. When we get that next guy, he needs to be able to cheer these guys up and get them to come out there and want to win football games.
Right.
Period.
I think what a lot of people see, and I'm gonna make this real quick, and I'll let you get your point, is like you see the clips of Tom Brady, on the sideline, and you see the clip of Peyton Manning, arguing with Jeff Saturday, and telling him that he's the one that calls the plays, that kind of, and you don't get that feeling, that sense from from Mariota. So I think that's what a lot of people point at. What you got, John?
I'll say this. I have seen Mariota like go and like dap up his offensive line guys, and I have seen him do that. Do I see him do it all the time? No. I'll say this though. The comments coming from the players, McGarry, Drake London, I can't remember who else, but the people that were the media had availability to, every single one of them to a man were like, we love Mariota. We will we want, basically, like, we want to play for him. Right. Okay. Now it could just be that they're saying it just to say it to make sure, try to keep the locker room close. You could say all those things, but they could also not say anything like that. Right. So he's at the very least got their respect. They know that how hard he works. They're going to say it. So when somebody says, like, does he have that dog in him? I think he's as competitive as anybody else. Now, just being competitive in the NFL, and loving competition and being psyched up because you're this, that, and the other, that doesn't fit. That's not going to magically make you a better player, right? Some guys just are more talented than other guys, and some guys are less talented. Now, all these guys are world-class talents because they're in the NFL. But Mariota, we've seen his ceiling. Right. We've seen it. Yep. We don't know what Ridder's ceiling is. We believe, and I'm assuming that the coaches believe this too, we believe the ceiling's much higher. But I'm, and I think if we're going to make that change to Ridder, I think he's probably going to be a better leader. But I don't necessarily say that he'll be a better leader or a better player because he's got more of that dog in him. It's just, I think he's just a more talented person, or a more talented player that has a higher ceiling than Mariota does. And I'm praying that we get to see it, not this weekend, obviously, because we have the bye, but the week after. I pray that we're able to see him at least, let's see those flashes, like you said, like with Jalen Hurts. Let's see a flash. It doesn't have to be he comes in and, oh my God, he's the next Mahomes or the next whoever. Right. Just let me see some, like we saw in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Like we saw in the preseason, we saw like some crazy good passes. We saw him, being super high energy. The width, like what's the term I'm thinking of here? The clutch gene with that, the clutch gene, whatever you want to call, with the late win against Detroit.
Yeah, Tony Wright, he says, also, let's play wide receiver Jared Bernhardt. I'd like to see him play the rest of the season. I think he's on IR, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on
IR.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's hurt. Yeah. But you bring that up. So it's a, that type of
deal. We need a Wes Welker. That's what we need.
This Wade says this is/was a transition season, no matter how good or bad the season turned out. Finding a base which is we can run the ball with a lackluster roster is a win for the Falcons. I tend to agree with that statement. Finding an identity, finding something that you can, hang your hat on, is a win a lot of ways. Millie Mills says, what's up, P for P? What's going on, Millie? Glad you're with us.
What up?
Tony Rice says, I bet that if Caleb Huntley got 15 to 18 carries, he'd have over 100 yards rushing. Even pop long ones, get stronger with more carries. Huntley is an interesting guy. I think the tandem of Huntley and Algier, for the 4 games that Patterson was out, that was a good pairing. When Patterson got back healthy, it had to diminish somebody's carries, and that unfortunately was Huntley.
I think Patterson should. It's like we can call him the starter. We can call him RB1. Now, if he gets into a groove, let him keep going. But honestly, I think Algier and Huntley and that needs to be running back 1 and 2. With Patterson spelling them for maybe he breaks a big run or whatever, but then using him out as a wide receiver or using him out of the backfield, lined up next to Algier or Huntley. But I'll say this: when I watch Huntley run, I love watching him run. The way he runs, you just always feel like it's at least 4 yards, and it never feels like he toe taps anytime.
No, he's just he's downhill hard running. If you really look at it, a lot of times, something I've said before, and the pattern seems to continue. Huntley gets a lot of more of the inside zone runs, and that one cut and go kind of deal, as to where Algier seems to get a lot more of the wide zone runs. Now Algier also gets the inside zone, because I think they're trying to make him more of that,
lead guy.
More of that lead guy.
Yeah.
But I like the way Huntley runs, and I really hope that he continues to carve out a niche.
Yeah, I see. K Jackson went on here in the chat with it, and he was saying he's on that Desmond Ridder should start train as well as many of us, and it's time to just end that Marcus Mariota experiment. I believe if we're gonna do it, it's right now, guys. So. Let him get these last 4 games, man. You got the bye week now to get them prepared a little bit more. It's time, man.
No, I completely agree with that sentiment. I almost wish our bye had come a little earlier.
Yeah,
because I think that's part. I think they were waiting on 2 things. I think they were waiting on a bye, and they were waiting on realistically being out of contention.
Yeah,
and it became, these last few games became very evident that you're not going to be in contention. So you couple that with the bye, and I think it's a perfect time to get Ridder ready. And from the comments that Dave Archer made on 92.9 The Game, that's the first time I've heard anybody who's really associated with the Falcons as a team, as an organization, talk about really starting Ridder outside of like the journalist people. They're supposed to present like somewhat of a non-biased front, but like you don't ever really hear Archer say things like that, and for him to go on the radio and make the statements, to the, Falcons radio network at 92.9 saying that he would be surprised if Ridder wasn't the starter when we face the Saints.
Yeah.
That tells me all I need to know right there in a lot of aspects. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but for him to put that out on the airways it feels as close to a guarantee as we're going to get before an announcement.
Yeah.
So
I agree. It was the first time what he said was he felt like this last game felt like the first time that specifically Mariota was the reason why we lost.
Right.
Other games we've lost because of various other reasons. Mariota maybe contributing to it, what have you, but there were other reasons. He felt like this was the game where you had the guys running free and open. You had guys that if you hit even half of the ones that you missed, we're probably looking at a totally different outcome, possibly winning by 10 points or more.
Right.
If we're hitting at least half of the ones that we're missing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
that's where we're at, and I think we're gonna see Ridder. Next week's a bye, so I think we're probably gonna take a break on the live stream. Probably won't do one next Tuesday. I'll probably have something out on Friday, and I may do something just like a standalone video sometime next week for y'all. So just keep your eye on the channel as we go ahead and wrap it up here, because we have now bumped well over an hour, which we appreciate everybody joining us. I'm gonna try to get this ticker going. Let's see.
And I appreciate everybody that welcomed me back.
There you go.
Had a little sickness going on, and I couldn't join the last live that we did on the Washington Commanders game.
Well, you didn't miss much. John Yates held it down for you from out of your Falcon mind. We did pretty good there.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, by the way.
Yeah,
man, me too. Thank you.
It hit my daughter yet again. So for the second time in a calendar month, she's gotten the flu. So it's y'all just wash your hands. Use hands.
Yeah, we had it right. Me and the wife had it. It was about a month ago now, but we had it. It seemed like the thing was here for 3 weeks. It's just miserable for 3 weeks.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that, King 7.
Yep. He said, glad to have you back. But anyway, as always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. That's GRIMM1128. Toby
D 1991.
Jonathan, I don't know if you even care to throw your Twitter out there. If you you tweet less than Toby tweets, so I mean, not a ton.
I'll probably start trying to do a little bit more, but for now, keep it a mystery.
There it is.
Maybe next stream, if maybe it'll just you got to come back and see though.
Never know.
Gotta come back.
As always, Falcons fans, keep your eye on the channel, and we appreciate you. And rise up.
Rise up.